Since the dawn of the 21st century, scientific discovery has rushed forward at lightning speed. Genetics, physics, computerized technology, robotics, virtual reality. Join Derek and Sharon Gilbert as they uncover the truths behind this ultimate scientific deception. Welcome to SciFriday.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. It's time for SciFriday from Skywatch TV. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert. Joining us, our science advisor, my best friend, and the author of the Red Wings Saga, the newest book, Realms of Stone, now available, Sharon K. Gilbert.
Hi, sweetie. Bye, Buzz.
Buzz.
All right, did you quote from The Fly because of the flies in our house, or because we just celebrated the one-year anniversary of our trip to Roswell, where we were inundated
Well,
by
there was
flies?
that. Then there was also the aspect of terror, which I experienced on the way into work today, with irrational fear of arachnids. I found a tick crawling on my leg as I was driving.
Was it blue?
No, it wasn't. No, that
That would have been
the
fun,
big dumb. Yeah, it would kind of been funny, but no, it's something we deal with here in the Ozarks and around the country. Yeah, I felt a tickle on my leg, slapped at it, and then noticed this 8-legged thing crawling around the floor
Putting
of the car.
the tick back in tickle.
Exactly. Yes. So was able to find a safe place to pull over and stop and get it out of the car before.
That explains that scream I heard this morning.
Yeah, the high-pitched scream from miles away. I'm sure that, the whole county must have heard it. So, but thankfully, and this is, something that causes a lot of car accidents. Single-car wrecks often are caused by people who are slapping at a bee or a spider or something and losing track of what's going on the road. So, while I was looking down at then I realized, hey, I'm on a 2-lane country road, better look up. Whoa! And avoided the oncoming truck, thankfully. So.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. That could have been really bad.
Today could have turned out to be a lot different than it was.
And the tick would just laughed.
Tick would have laughed, yeah. And then moved on to another victim. So
now,
anyway.
I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about a number of things. So this is going to be a whirlwind tour on this SciFriday because there's no particular direction, but one thing
As
that
is often the case with SciFriday.
One of the things you and I talked about this morning was the possibility of doing a show about demons of
Fear.
Of fear, but also demons that are really we would think of them as strategies or stratagems that the enemy would use against us. Some event in our lives that actually that illness or that feeling we have, it's actually a specific demon that's attached to it.
Dread, yeah.
So is it possible that, seriously, that sometimes what we perceive as insects, this is really going to creep you out when I say this, things that we sometimes perceive as insects in our lives are actually demonic? There are an awful lot of demons that are pictured, they are written about as being insectoid in shape or animalistic in shape.
And that is even been reported in volunteers in the experiments with DMT conducted by Dr. Rick Strassman years ago.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the tick in the car this morning was bad. It's just I think it's possible. Because you and I, we've talked a number of times on the show about how sometimes anyone in ministry, in fact any Christian, if you're walking with the Lord, you're going to meet opposition. And sometimes that opposition comes in the form of spiritual oppression.
Right, just a sense apparently unfounded that something very bad is about to happen.
And when you say apparently unfounded, you don't immediately see the cause.
You don't see a physical or natural cause. And we dealt with that here at Skywatch TV. We don't talk about it much because
it's just
part of life, and it's part of your calling. When, as you say, you follow where God is leading you, you're going to run into opposition. The enemy wants to make the other path. How does Jesus describe it? Broad and straight. I mean, the path that we're taking is the narrow, crooked one because it is not the easy path. So, but we've had times like that where things, for no obvious or natural reason, seem like there's something coming. I can just feel like and sometimes it takes a few days of that to realize, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should be praying about this because maybe this is a spiritual thing. So yes, there are scriptural references, most notably in Psalm 91, verse 5, where an entity appears to be referred to there, the terror of the night. Psalm 91:5 in the ESV, you will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day. And the word translated arrow there is a reference to the Canaanite, actually a very popular supernatural entity. The arrow is a reference to the weapon of the Semitic deity called Reshef, or plague. But Reshef was just the Semitic name for the Greek god Apollo, who was also the plague god depicted as an archer, the plague god.
Well, you see similar imagery in the book of Revelation when the writer is given a toxon. It's called that because it arcs like an arrow does, but it's very powerful, and we get the word toxic from that.
Right.
So it may be poisonous.
So the Psalm 91 reference there, since that second half of that verse is referring to something supernatural, the arrow that flies by day is not simply the weapon of your physical enemy, but it is a weapon of the principalities and powers that Paul wrote about. The terror of the night appears to be something more than just an irrational fear of the dark, and that is the Semitic term pachad, meaning terror.
Which is actually in the Dictionary of Demons and Deities.
Exactly, and it's referred to in a couple of other places. The Song of Solomon, interestingly, Song of Solomon makes reference to pachad in chapter 3, verse 8, talking about the men of war, or the guards who accompany Solomon, who is apparently referred to here in this chapter. All of them, his men accompanying his retinue, all of them wearing swords and expert in war, each with his sword at the thigh, against terror by night. So what are they arming themselves for if they're dealing with just fear, just a discomfort, unease? We're dealing with something here a little more substantial, but supernatural.
Absolutely supernatural, and I think that we tend to forget about that, as you said a few minutes ago, when we start to feel that sort of unease, as you put it, but this feeling of oppression. I don't really know why I'm so upset, don't know what's really bothering me, a heaviness. Sometimes you feel like a little cloud's following you around. Sometimes there actually is a little cloud following you around. Oh, look, it's my dog. That you need to stop and realize that the enemy's trying to get at you, and it may be through a way that the enemy's hoping you won't recognize. But it's in the Old Testament.
Right. So there's also the reference in Job where he deals with the what appears to be a description of night terrors. So naturalistic explanations include being in that sort of dream state between wakefulness and sleep. But spiritually speaking, if we're dealing with principalities and powers, we're dealing with supernatural entities that have the power, apparently, to instill that kind of unease, this discomfort, this sense of dread or imminent doom on us. And the Bible tells us, though, that this is not coming from God because He does not give us a spirit of fear.
No, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one of those passages that it's easy to just go past.
Right. If you're being afraid, you're not really trusting in God enough. Well, no, he's referring to a spirit of fear. Now, that's not to go too far down that path, because there are some well-meaning teachers who will ascribe to almost any activity a spirit, the spirit of overeating, or the spirit of
dirty glasses.
Whatever. Yeah. I don't mean to make light of anyone, but I think we can go way beyond what the Bible teaches us and tells us. But if we take Paul at his word, and I assume Paul knew his theology better than I do, then we're dealing with spirits that have the power to influence us in the natural realm, principalities and powers. Our wrestling match, which is a physical activity, is not against human opponents, but against principalities and powers and rulers of spiritual wickedness in high places.
It's interesting that terror, this tactic, has a spiritual identity.
Yes.
That, because we've had a war against terror since 2001. Yeah.
I wrote an article about the spirit of terror for Skywatch TV magazine several months ago, based on this, and did a couple thousand words exposition on it. So I think there's something to this. And again, I keep coming back to Paul as the expert here in saying that these issues that we wrestle with on a day-to-day basis, and oftentimes I'm really guilty of this. And this is something that we here at Skywatch TV, the men here, we gather together in the morning when we're all here in the office, because there are a lot of days that pull one or the other of us out of the office. But when we're here, we'll get together and we pray before we do anything else to start the day. And that's because we recognized a couple of years ago that there were days where we just felt really stressed or anxious And then we realized, wait a minute, why are we only praying in response to stuff that's hitting us instead of putting on the whole armor of God, which was the whole point of chapter 6 of Paul's letter to the church at Ephesus.
Exactly. Don't wait until you have to go on the offense. Do defense.
Right. And his words, depending on the translation of the Bible that you read, powers and principalities is from the King James. The English Standard Version, which we like, uses the words rulers, authorities, which often commentators can, say, okay, well, you're dealing with politicians here. No, the words that he used there, the Greek words he used, are often applied to spiritual entities, rulers, authorities, cosmic powers. That's not, your
cosmocrators.
That's not your elected official. No. Cosmic powers over this present darkness and the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Those are our true opponents, and yet they can affect us in the natural realm. So,
but by the way, you mentioned that the men get together here and pray. I just want to let you know that the women have been praying here for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
The ladies in the office have been getting together for years and praying.
Right.
And I guess it was about a year or two ago that you guys said, hey, you know what?
Yeah, we need to start doing this too. Let's be proactive instead of reactive. But that's, men. It's like, well, I can solve this. I just need to take a deep breath, roll up my sleeve, and...
Ooh. By the way, lest you're thinking, what's this got to do with science? Well, you know how we are. We sometimes wander far afield, but I think you can make an argument that almost everything is science because it just means knowledge.
True. And God does give us a physical reaction. He designed us with certain physical responses to sudden jolts of fear that can actually be very helpful. In fact, there was an episode
seeing that tick and noticing that the tick was down there, the tick, before it bit you.
Well, true.
That was a good idea.
But thankfully, I acted somewhat rationally in finding a space to pull over and get off the road before trying to deal with the tick.
Aren't you glad you weren't in St. Louis traffic at the time?
Amen to that. But we heard the other day, and I'd have to double check this to confirm that it's true, that Australia, which has more toxic and venomous critters than anywhere else on the planet, no one has died from a venomous spider bite there in years and years, and yet you've got single car accidents that happen regularly, and a lot of it is probably because somebody sees a spider or a bee or a wasp in the car and is trying to get it and losing track of what they're doing behind the wheel.
Yeah,
but there are times when humans can be motivated to almost superhuman feats of speed, strength, or endurance because of the physical responses that God designed into us to fear, to run really fast, to lift impossible loads in order to save somebody who's in danger, things like that are part of our design. But the spirit of ongoing oppression and fear, the sense of dread that something might go wrong, again, that's not from God, and that is not a physical response to that we should experience as part of this wrestling match against the principalities and powers.
Well, that is so true. I mentioned a few minutes ago that since 2001, we, the United States, have been engaged in a war against terror, a tactic. But if you see terror as spiritual, then it makes sense. You're not at war against a tactic, you are at war against a being.
Sure.
Or a group of beings.
And I think the only way to explain the tactics employed by those who use terror as a weapon is spiritual. Because there is because some of the things that we've seen from groups that employ terror as a weapon over the centuries, not just here in recent history with the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda or anything like that, but this is a very old thing that goes back a long time. The whole idea of putting somebody's head on a pike outside the castle gate, is to inspire terror. The attack by the king of Judah, Jehoshaphat, and the king of Israel, and I forget who the king was at the time, but they were going to war against the king of Moab, not Chemosh, but Misha, who left a Moabite stone that helped translate translate other Semitic languages. The Bible tells us that Misha took his child up on the wall, his son, and sacrificed his son on the wall, which inspired fear and terror into the armies of Israel and Judah, and they ran away.
Well, we saw another show yesterday that was talking about a tactic that was used by a military campaign. I don't know if you were watching at the time or not, but what they did, the military commander brought in condemned prisoners who were going to die anyway, and he ordered them, you will take your heads by the hair and slice off your own heads.
Slice
you
off
will
your own heads.
decapitate your heads in front of this line of soldiers, so the enemy will see what we are willing to do in order to win. And they were told, if you do not do it, because you're going to die anyway, if you do not do it, we will kill your family.
Yeah, this was in ancient Southeast Asia, I believe, ancient Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So, but the things like that are so horrific. The idea of sacrificing your child in public view of the enemy, of forcing men to cut off their own heads to terrify the enemy. That those are so unacceptable to God, who, as far back as the time of Noah, before he gave the law to Moses, said that for the shedding of human blood, a reckoning would be required even of animals that shed human blood. That it has to be supernatural. It has to be spiritual. Terror is a spirit in the Bible referred to by the name pachad. I think there's something to this.
Well, we need to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about how terror can be used in the 21st century, and not necessarily the way you might think.
Okay, we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about our upcoming trip to Texas. We hope to see you there when SciFriday returns after this.
Call now and take advantage of Skywatch TV's biggest giveaway of the summer. The Zeitgeist Summer Exclusive includes Dr. Thomas Horn's eye-opening new book, Zeitgeist 2025, Countdown to the Secret Destiny of America, The Lost Prophecies of Qumran, and the Return of Old Saturn's Reign, along with a never-before-released 6-part Zeitgeist 2025 companion DVD, the shocking full-length documentary, The Secret Destiny of America on DVD, the full-length movie, Belly of the Beast, the ancient mystery that holds the secret of Antichrist's resurrection and return, and the entire 6-disc Rise 2021 Defender Virtual Conference box set on DVD, a $245 value, now available for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling. In the new book, Zeitgeist 2025, you will learn hidden secrets and forgotten prophecies surrounding the year 2025, how the current U.S. government is tied to America's occult destiny, lost prophecies from Qumran, forecasting 2025 as the final age of man, how America's capital city is laid out to actuate arrival of Antichrist, and why historians and intelligence agencies foresee a totalitarian world government by 2025. You'll also receive the Zeitgeist Companion DVD. This 6-part eye-opening expose on DVD reveals the malevolent Orwellian trinity converging around the world, seeking to homogenize the freedom to speak and think in order to create nations of assimilated devotees who will embrace Antichrist. And we're just getting started. This must-have collection also includes the breathtaking 2-hour documentary, The Secret Destiny of America on DVD, featuring Dr. Thomas Horn as he reveals who the God on America's Great Seal and U.S. $1 bill really is, why 72 pentagrams in the Capitol Dome are used to control the ancient cosmocrators who rule the nations, the coming incarnation of Antichrist, and much, much more. But that's not all. For a very limited time, you'll also receive the complete Rise 2021 Defender Virtual Conference box set on DVD. This 6-disc collection is jam-packed with over 26 hours of mind-boggling revelations from world-renowned Bible teachers, archaeologists, and ancient language scholars on the prophetic events unfolding all around the world right now, featuring unforgettable presentations from Dr. Thomas Horn, Dr. Judd Burton, Bishop Ron Webb, Dr. Aaron Judkins, Pastor Mark Biltz, Colonel David Giammona, Dr. Ken Johnson, and so many more. Plus, for the first time ever, free the full-length movie Belly of the Beast, the ancient mystery that holds the secret of Antichrist's resurrection and return, on DVD, absolutely free. Sold separately, these items hold a shocking retail value of over $245. Yours now for a donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling while supplies last. So don't miss Skywatch TV's biggest giveaway of the summer, the Zeitgeist Summer Exclusive, available now at skywatchtvstore.com. Order now or call 1-844-750-4985.
Hi, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and we are here to tell you about an exciting new program from Skywatch TV.
We are really looking forward to this. It is a program that will address some of the strange, the unusual questions, some of the puzzling issues, some that draw, well, people away from the Bible because they don't think there are answers for it in Scripture.
That is so true. Now, behind us, you're seeing the Unraveling Revelation logo, but we're going to show you right now the logo for the brand new television program that will probably debut in March or April.
Yep.
It is called
The Bible's Greatest Mysteries. Think of this as a program where we go, as soon as travel allows again, to various locations and investigate, interview scholars, archaeologists, Bible experts, prophecy experts, to help us to understand some of the mysterious aspects of life on planet Earth.
You've seen other groups do the same kind of television program. They try to explain it by saying they're aliens. We want to explain it from the Bible. We want to take all of these questions. There is no question that cannot be answered biblically.
Amen to that. So keep watch. We'll be announcing the dates as soon as we have it. As soon as we have a firm date to launch. Right now, it's still in pre-production, but coming soon from Skywatch TV, the Bible's greatest mysteries.
Can't wait.
Welcome back to SciFriday from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert, along with Sharon K. Gilbert, author of the Red Wings Saga
Stack
Book
of
4.
books. A whole stack of books for only $50 donation. A big stack of books, 6 books, and a DVD.
Yes, Best of SciFriday included. So you get all 4 of the books so far in the Red Wings Saga. She's currently working on book 5. And again, your donation is just $50. All of that to you.
It's a crazy deal. And if you already have the first 3 books and all you need is book 4, you can get that plus the 2 extra books by Derek and the SciFriday disc for just $20 donation.
Yeah.
It's a crazy deal.
Yeah.
Tom, he's wild. Well, terror used to be inspired by putting a man's head on a pike.
Yeah.
Now it can be inspired by, posting something on your social media site. There was just a story this morning that in India, people have been hanged. They have been lynched, so to speak. They have been killed by mobs because an app told them that person was a pedophile or told them that person had been abusing children.
So modern day lynch mobs being formed through social media, inspired by social media.
Imagine now an algorithm that uses social media websites to put forth a terrorist campaign, blaming people in your neighborhood, starting to name names. Remember the Twilight Zone episode, Nightmare on Elm Street, not Nightmare on Maple Street. Maybe that was the name of it.
Or the monsters come to Maple, something that,
something like that, and it was aliens who were beaming information down into the local area in a neighborhood and turning off lights. That's all they did. They turned off power to certain streets. And they allowed the humans to just let their imaginations drive them crazy. Right.
And there was one fellow who, one house where the lights were on and everybody, hey, how come your lights are on? Hey, don't you work in that science laboratory with those guys? Are you, what do you, basically turning people one against another just as an experiment. So,
now imagine an algorithm that may not necessarily be only code, but actually inhabited by one of these spirits. It's a wonderful platform, and I use that as in that it's wonderful to the enemy. They would consider it a great platform for reaching us. Hey, brand new methodology for reaching the humans. Don't have to go to them in their dreams anymore. Use their social media website.
This really doesn't take a lot of imagination to see how this could really go. I'm getting a little bit tired of social media lately, and I know that we need to use it in order to put out information and in order to let people know what we're doing and where we're doing it and that sort of thing. It's toxic. But I'm getting a little tired of social media walls, and I don't want to call it specific platforms, but where it's nothing but memes and videos espousing one political point of view or the other, both of which are diametrically opposed.
It's a toxic environment that is intended to distract us from our real job as believers.
Yes, and it's very effective. And because I need to look at the news every day, this hits me a little harder than it does you. I mean, you're sensible enough to just turn it off and walk away.
I don't have to look at it.
I keep diving in. Yeah, your head's in the 19th century. There you go.
Exactly.
And I'm glad you did that the other day. In fact, you kind of lightened the mood a bit because I noticed a lot of people responded to that. Look, I'm sick of seeing political stuff, so here's a picture of our dog, Sam. And frankly, a lot of times that's what I'm wanting to see there. What are my friends doing around the country? People I haven't seen in a while. What are my family members doing?
What happened?
And all I got is people ranting and raving about the Supreme Court nominee who hasn't even been selected yet. And various other things, stuff going on at the border and this, that, and the other. the enemy is using it, you're right, to
Yes.
instill not necessarily fear, but anger at the same time.
Oh, very much so, because the stuff that we're seeing on social media is being curated for us by an algorithm.
Right. So I've been going through and telling it, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see. Show me. I don't even like cats, but show me pictures of cats. Because that's more.
Well, there for a while, I avoided some social media websites, and again, I won't name them, but there were a few out there that tended to be more cat pictures. And
Right.
even those have become political.
Oh,
The 19th century is a nice place to hang out.
Well, it is. And, sports used to be just sort of a recreation for me. Yes, I grew up a Cubs fan and a Bears fan, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't take it that seriously now. I'll kind of look in during the season, get me to the playoffs. It's like, okay, the teams I like in there? No? Okay, I'll move on to something else. But even now, that's getting to be an NBA All-Star who has been in and out of coaching for a few years, was spotted in a picture at a Trump rally, and suddenly the NBA is all up in arms. He should never coach again. I tune to sports to forget about stuff like that. But the enemy is using that and using tools like this. So again, you're right. An artificial intelligence algorithm taking this next step further and stirring up not just fear, but anger, hatred. Hey, this neighbor of yours is fill in the blank. Pedophile, whatever, and getting crowds together. So far in India, they say more than 20 people have been killed in the last 2 months because of social media lynch mobs.
Isn't that tragic?
It is.
I mean, seriously, these people, they did, in most cases, probably had done nothing to their neighbors. But let's say you have a neighbor who is named, or you just, for whatever, believe that there are pedophiles around and you don't like your neighbor.
You're right, exactly. And this is being judged without the benefit of due process. Sadly, this is the kind of thing that governments are using one against another to try to stir up opposition movements. And to be quite frank, that's probably a lot of what's the reason for what's going on here in the United States, as well as around the world, in terms of stirring up dissension, unrest, and chaos.
Well, that's the other part of it. It's possible that a sentient algorithm or an inhabited algorithm could do things like this, but it's also something that a government entity might do to another government to help destabilize it.
Just imagine we get an artificial superintelligence that is literally inhabited by an external entity, and what kind of power it could wield using the power of the internet, the interconnectedness of all things, the Internet of Things, tying together every device from our smart devices to our kitchen appliances.
And then to move it onto the battlefield, because that's where the Internet of Things is moving.
Yeah.
The battlefield Internet of
Yeah.
Things.
Well, just remember, the spirit of fear is not coming from God.
Right.
There is a spirit out there called terror, pachad, mentioned in the Bible. So we see this convergence of science and fear and hatred. Again, if you've got a biblical, prophetic worldview, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to see how this could be really, really useful to a future one world government.
Well, that is so true. Well, your assignment this week is to post something to Facebook. Put a cat picture up there, dog picture, something nice.
Something happy, right?
Something happy.
Think on these things,
Yes.
right? And we thank you for watching as we keep watch. Have a blessed weekend. With Sharon Gilbert, I'm Derek Gilbert. This is SciFriday from Skywatch TV.